Hello, everyone. I hate you all. Welcome back to another episode on the podcast. Today, we're here with Stumpy. Hello, Stumpy. All
This
right.
does sound like the real you, though. I like it.
So we only get legitness on this podcast. All right, let's do it.
Exactly. I'm keeping that in, by the way.
No. I swear to God, if you post this and you make me look like an idiot, I'm gonna hate you. When I'm never doing
You're
this
well
again.
capable of that on your own.
It'll be good content if you do, to be fair. But
Yeah.
all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Totally Stumped podcast, episode 3 now. You've made it all the way here. You know what that means. You can never leave us. You got to stick around for the full series, every episode we ever do, because you don't want to miss out on this amazing content. So how are you doing, Stumpy? How's it been? How's your week? Tell me all about it, and then I won't shut the fuck up about how my week's been. Let's go.
Everything is garbage. I hate it up. Nah, I'm having a good week. Things have been going well. I've been getting a few streams out, chilling out in real life, seeing my mates a bit more. It's been a good week.
Ah, now that's the first lie, pretending that you have friends. We all know you play Dead by Daylight and you stream on Twitch. It's just not possible.
No, exactly.
All right. Speaking of the DBD, Lights Out returning. How are we feeling? Are we excited? Are we not? How did you feel about Lights Out last time? Do you like it?
I thought it was interesting. I think they definitely could have done it better. It'll sort of, now that we've had a few other game modes, depend on what the incentives are in playing both. You need to make it as worthwhile playing one side as the other, as we've seen by the 2v8. Because if everybody wants to play Killer, it's a nightmare. If everybody wants to play Survivor, it's a nightmare. They need to get their balance right in bringing it back. And I think they have said they've lined up a few changes from last time. So it'll be interesting to see which role is the most fun and whether we have the same queue issues as the last few things.
Yeah,
what about yourself?
Sure. I mean, I'm quite excited about it because DBD is not that scary normally, and I'd like it to be. I like it being a little bit more scary at times, depending on how. Like, I don't like the hag scary where like there'll be the occasional trap that jump scares the life out of you, and then that's all that happens. That's kind of terrible, but this is quite exciting. I do quite like Lights Out. I like the concept of it. I enjoyed it last time. I think it's more fun on Survivor side, maybe. As someone who normally much prefers Killer. I didn't mind Survivor side. I'll definitely play a lot more Survivor in Lights Out. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I'm interested to see exactly what they're going to add. As you say, the queue times do need to be balanced out a little bit. I think they will be a lot better than 2v8 though, no matter what. And I think they should be okay. Like, there's decent incentive for both sides here. So I think it should be decent, actually. It should be a really good event, hopefully.
I think you're definitely right. The chances of getting jump scared will be way up in it, and that's always good. Especially from like a content perspective, or even just a fear perspective. Like, whenever we all started playing, everybody has those first 5-6 games where they actually were afraid, or they actually felt that fear of, oh god, there's a killer trying to kill me. Obviously, everyone's experienced enough now. They wouldn't feel that anymore unless you are just new starting into DBD. So it's nice to bring back that sort of scary dynamic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with that. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I don't know about you though. It wasn't my first 5 or 6 games when I was playing DBD. It was like my first like 50 or so. I don't know. I was scared for a while. Maybe I'm just like a bit more of a wuss or that sort of thing. But look, I don't know about 5 or 6 games.
To be fair, whenever I started, it was dark maps, so it was very fucking scary. What the fuck was that?
I see. I see. Okay, yeah, no. To be fair, it was very, very different when back when. When did you start actually? When did you start? That's a good question. I don't know if I actually know that.
I started, I think it was when the Hag first was out.
Oh my god.
So it's a very long time ago.
Yeah, so you've seen like maps change completely then. They've reworked so many maps since that time and changed like the lighting of them all and everything. To me, like, there's been some things that changed, but it's been more like less lighting and just more like graphical and more like loops and whatnot. Like, I started playing when Nemesis came out around that sort of time. So I've kind of seen
while
like,
in the game, like.
Yeah, but the biggest things I've seen is like Macmillan's change a little bit and Otterhaven stuff, but like they haven't drastically changed the lighting. Like back when the Hag was around, it was like a much darker, scary, sort of stealthy game. I've never really
Mm.
played that. It's
See, I only played that for maybe 6 months and then went off the game for years until I came back again. I think by the time I came back, Onryo had just been released. Not cross progression, cross platform was in the game, so you could play against more people, or you had more queues, or like less queue times and stuff like that. Whereas before, it was a nightmare trying to get a game.
okay. Fair enough, fair enough. And speaking of how DBD has changed over the years, there's been a few changes recently. It's been a hot topic about behavior removing skill expression and fun from the game in ways with different killers. We've seen that recently with the Chucky 180 flicks. I'd like to say you can still 180 flick with Chucky, but you need to pre-turn. You used to be able to just do an insta 180 flick. That was removed. They removed Blight's hug tech. They have just said recently, when asked, at least one of the devs said recently when asked about the new killer, that they are intending on removing the wolf hug tech as well, and that is not intended and will be took out the game. How do you feel about this? We're seeing a lot of things, even like Wesker's Eurobend was almost took out the game, but they reverted that change too, and they're expected to get rid of Wesker's hug tech. How do you feel about them removing these things? Do you think they're unfair? Do you think they're a good, fun part of the game that should remain? What do you think?
I think it is, as you say, skill expression. It's when you put that many hours into a killer, you want to be able to do stuff that the likes of me, whenever hug attacks were on Blight, the likes of myself who didn't play that much Blight couldn't do that, and I'd just be bouncing off stuff normally. It was a real skill to be able to hug tack round a loop and hit someone. And I think they're running the risk of just pissing off a lot of players that have put the hours into these killers, because with Blight, I know a lot of Blight mains just dropped them. As soon as that happened, they were like, well, where's the fun aspect of them now? Now you just have to bounce off stuff. There's no like great tech that we can do that shows our skill, that shows how we do stuff, that helps us in loops where we otherwise couldn't get the hit. So it's kind of like they're running a fine line of removing stuff to make it easier for players while also pissing off the players who are good enough and have put in the time to learn those things.
Yeah.
So they gotta tread lightly.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I don't know. There's some things I'm happy about, some things I'm not so happy about. So, like, if I look at case by case, like the Chucky 180 flick, I'm a controller player. So, as somebody who could never, ever be able to do that unless I either bought a PC at the time or, like, you know, somehow played mouse and keyboard on console, being a big fan of Chucky and knowing that, oh, you know, I might be good enough to do this, but I can never do it because my device doesn't let me, kind of sucks. So that 180 flick being removed, I wasn't so bothered about. But things like Blight's hug tech, that is disappointing. That's really, really fun. That's something that everyone could do on any platform. So, or at least I'm pretty sure. I don't know about Switch, I guess, but like for the most part, you could do that. And Wesker hug techs are a really, really like difficult thing to pull off. That's quite skilled and quite fun as well. So it would be kind of sad to see the Wesker hug tech go, and I'm not sure the Blight hug tech being removed was great either. But I get the direction they're going in. I don't know if it's the best direction for the game. I think a lot of people are unhappy about it, and the people who complained about things like Blight's hug tech are still going to be dying to Blight, and still are dying to Blight, because it's not actually. A lot of the people that complained about it aren't really the people who are particularly great, so they're still dying. It wasn't really that. Blight's still a very, very strong killer at the end of the day. It's just a more fun aspect of him has been removed now, so I don't know. It's not that fun to see stuff like that go, in my opinion. But hopefully they maybe take a bit more of a relaxed stance on things, because a lot of the best things in games aren't necessarily intended. They become a part of the game, and players really love them, and that's what makes the game great. And Behavior are removing a lot of the things that people have enjoyed about a lot of the characters in the past, and it's disappointing.
Do you feel it's affected the amount of, well, while we're on Blight, the amount of Blights you see in games? I feel like the number of Blights I was playing was a lot more before they removed the hug tag.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. And to be fair, like, you're probably you're probably more likely to see when you do see a better blight now. Like the people who are complaining about dying to blight all the time, blaming it on hook tech, are gonna die to blight even more now probably because the people playing blight are actually like trying to. They're not doing it necessarily to learn all these fun little techs now. They're doing it because that's the killer I like to play, and they're refining more just basic skills that don't take as much skill, and so they will get better at them a lot quicker. And you will find a lot more boring playstyles because hook teching was pretty counterable at the end of the day still in a lot of tiles. But pure bump logic, there are just tiles that if you play right as blight, you will always get the hit, and there are tiles if you play with blight, you will never get the hit. And if blights know that, they'll just run around the tile, force the pallet drop, and then whatever tile you're at next, you will get hit at. And that is not necessarily very fun, and you'll see that a lot more because the blights playing it only have that option. That is what they have to do now. They're not going to do some insane like moon rush unless they're on like a really unique tile like one of those sin cars. You're just going to see more basic bump logic plays, and that's not fun to go against, and you will die more often. So I don't know, it hasn't achieved a whole lot other than just like hurting the character. I've personally played a lot more blight since the changes, but that's unrelated. They changed the way swing works a little bit to make it a little more forgiving on controller. So I am still enjoying blight a bit, but I would enjoy it a hell of a lot more if they didn't remove a lot of the fun aspects about him. So, and I think everyone else, for the most part, would agree. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting topic.
I think it's interesting as well. Like there has been a big deal made about it being removed, but in behavior's mind, it's an advantage that it gives blight to remove it. But then you'd also have to ask, you've removed that because it gives blight an advantage in your eyes. Why did you remove the likes of Space Billy? It doesn't give an advantage. It's just fun. And it was something that a lot of Billy mains loved doing. It was a bit of crack. It was hilarious to go against, to play with. It was just a fun time in the game. There's nothing funnier than you standing on a map and a Billy just comes out of the sky and nails you. And you're going, where did he come from? Like, it was a great time to play the game.
Yeah, no, I see that. I guess from a developer standpoint, maybe with something as like game breaking as Billy's Space Billy, right? It's not a problem in the game necessarily for the players, but it is still pretty game breaking because you end up like completely out of bounds and in the middle of nowhere and all sorts. And I guess if like you're a company that's like behavior are talking to you like, hey, I want to get your killer in the game, and you see Space Billy flying out of the map into like the next realm, then maybe behavior think that's not a very good look as developers and want to remove that so that it doesn't hurt potential deals. That's
But
the only thing I can think of.
The way to sort that surely would be to raise the boundaries of the walls to be above the walls so they couldn't fly out of the map, but they could still fly around in the map,
Yeah, maybe that might be a better idea. I can't claim to completely understand why they've done that, but that, my guesses would be along those lines, and they just decided to nuke it because of this. But I don't know, it's definitely an interesting one. It would be cool to see Space Billy back, but it's not going to happen, sadly. But hey, maybe they'll mess things up one day again, and Billy will return to space. Who knows?
Well, now moving on from things that probably won't happen to things that might happen. What would be your most wanted killer to see in the game?
Okay, so my most wanted killer at this point, I think it has been for a little bit, and I'm still gonna stick with the sensor. I think Slenderman is my most wanted killer. I really want to see him in the game. I think that would be really, really fun. Complete horror icon of the 2010 sort of time. Just really, really cool character. I'd love to see them in the game, and I'd love to see them get their own map as well. Having like an actual good forest map, in this with the Slender theme would be really cool. And imagine with like the pages and shit, like just for aesthetic on the different like trees and whatnot. That would be a really cool touch too for people who've played the Slender games.
Yeah, there's a whole lot they could definitely do with it. It's just a question of would they go into that detail? Because obviously we've seen Xeno come into the game, and I think a lot of people were expecting stuff to do with the eggs, the face huggers, things like that. And apart from just one face hugger Easter egg, we've not really got a chance to see much in that way. So it'd be a case of would they go that extra mile to bring in the little stuff with Slenderman, or would they just bring him in bog standard with a generic power and kind of just nerf him a lot?
would you not argue they did go the extra mile a little bit? Because they had the facehugger jump scare, but they also had the ID card to get into the secret room as well, which was kind of a cool touch. And they had like
They did just.
the bodies of a lot of crew members and whatnot. I feel like there was a lot of cool things.
I think a lot of us were expecting like stuff with face huggers is a big part of like creating the Xeno and things like that. Even eggs sitting around the map would have been cool,
Yeah.
or like having them as part of tiles would have been nice. But I suppose maybe it was just beyond what they could do, or maybe it was outside of the license that they agreed to.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I feel like they did put a lot into that though, to be fair. But I don't know. That's me on that front.
Mm-hmm.
Have you
Anyone else
seen?
then, or just Slenderman?
Well, I mean, Siren Head, maybe not super well known, but they're like that's the best way to describe Siren Head. It's like a really tall monster with a skinny, like lanky body and a head of a siren, and it like blurts out a bunch of random like audio cues and like numbers and words and stuff, and it's very like unnerving and creepy. It's like a creepypasta sort of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a generally a really cool like sort of legend. Or an SCP related character. Again, these are like a kind of anomalous alien like creatures with like weird supernatural abilities. They're really really cool. And a killer themed around one of those would be very nice. Or just like Art
Mm-hmm.
the Clown from Terrifier or whatnot. I mean, that would be so sick to see. I know the person who created Art the Clown had like made tweets to Behavior before about Art the Clown being a DVD, so it's definitely an option at some point, at least from the creator's standpoint. So it would be really cool to see that too.
I've seen a lot of people as well calling for the monsters from A Quiet Place, which could be a cool
Ooh.
concept, but it would depend how they bring it in because obviously those monsters don't have proper sight. So how do you bring that into DBD? You can't really bring in a killer that is blind and only has sound, you know. So maybe there'd be a cool way to do that where like the map is dark for you instead, and you see sound cues or something along those lines. But I don't know. I think it would be cool to have them in. It's just again, behavior's way of putting them in is so important. As with a lot of killers, the way behavior puts a killer into the game can be more important than the killer themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the most successful killers in DVD are like the original killers that don't have the big names behind them, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
Blight was so popular. I think Unknown got a bit of attraction when they came out, to be fair. Dredge was during an anniversary, but Dredge was really liked for a bit. These are
Mm-hmm.
killers that are like that are original. They don't have, you know, big hits behind them or anything. It's not like you're bringing in Myers or something, but they've done really, really well as
Mm-hmm.
original killers. So
I think it's good
I
as
do
well
think,
that like for the
yep,
most part, licensed killers aren't exactly the strongest.
yeah,
So there can never be a call of, oh well, this game is clearly pay to win. The strongest killer comes with base game now.
yeah,
Like she's miles and away the strongest killer. I'm not sure who the strongest of the licensed killers would be, but they're all in around middling. Some of them even quite weak. So at least
mm,
that's something good. They haven't brought out like they haven't brought Chucky in and made him immediately S tier and nobody can touch him because he's just too good. They've brought him in where it's like, right, he's not game breaking, he's solid and he's fun and it's one of your favorite characters from horror movies that you can play.
yeah,
But I'm sitting in quite a good position in terms of like wanting killers in. Like I wanted Xeno, Chucky, and Sadako, and all three of them are in the game. So I've never really thought since then about oh who's next, who would I want. I'm sitting pretty content right now. Of all right, three killers that I love seeing in movies are in the game, and you can play as them. They've got cool little features, and Chucky's got his voice lines and everything. It's a good time.
hell yeah. Although I would like to talk about a comment you made before. You said Nurse is in a way like by far the strongest killer. I know a few people who'd argue against that. Do you think Nurse is like miles ahead?
I still think she's the fact that like no other killer in the game requires you to play entirely different. If you know what I mean, like against Nurse, pallets do nothing, windows do nothing. There's no killer really that matches that.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think Nurse is the strongest as well. I agree. But I have heard a few people say that Billy is the strongest. Um I don't agree. I think Billy has way too many counters to be the strongest. He still has a lot of ways to play against him, and he still has to deal with a lot of normal gameplay. I don't think Billy is the strongest, but I did want to briefly bring that up because I know there are a couple people who would argue against that and say it's either close or that Billy's better. But I do agree that Nurse is the best killer in the game. And
I find a lot of people who say that though would run Billy with very crutch add-ons and add-ons that make him a far better killer. But if you're going base killer to base killer, nobody comes close to Nurse.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think even with Billy's best add-ons, he's still not close to Nurse, like close enough to be number one. Like, I still think there's a good gap. He still has like a lot of things you can do against him.
That's another thing of when we were talking about them removing things. Like, how far are they going to go? You know, we've seen Hug Text removed, we've seen Space Billy removed. What if they turn around at some stage and go, we don't think Billy should curve? Surely at that stage, the behavior or the Dead by Daylight community will draw the line and go, hang on a minute, stop removing everything.
Okay, to be fair, you gotta look at like why they're removing stuff. Every time they're removing it because they're saying it's not intended. Curving is definitely intended. I mean, they've specifically buffed things about curving. Like they made the duration of your like initial turn rate higher at the start of your chainsaw when they buffed Billy. So they 100% intend curving. So there's no way they'd ever go out their way to change that and get rid of curving because they intend on it and have buffed it. Whereas like,
where do you think that line is though? Like what is there anything you think is fun about a specific killer that if they said, oh yeah, we're going to remove this, do you think that would be the line that they cross where the community just goes, hang on a minute, no, that's not happening?
I don't think there will be a line. I think the community's given up too much ground. Like, the biggest line that could have been crossed was Blight's Hug Tech, in my opinion. That is the biggest thing they could have removed that's been around for years. They've changed little aspects of it before. They tried to get rid of it once, people weren't happy, and they failed to get rid of it. And then they actually did this time. Everyone was unhappy. It still wasn't enough, and it's gone. I don't think there's anything that'll be more impactful than that because Blight was one of the most, if not the most popular killer at the time, and people liked playing against Blight for the most part. As far considering he was an S tier killer at the time, people really enjoyed Blight a lot more compared to like someone like Nurse. And you know, we gave up the ground. Blight got nerfed. As for like how far they'll take it, I think they'll continue to get rid of anything that is unintentional and can be deemed to give an advantage over time, and people will not be happy about it. But I don't think there's enough pushback. I think we had our chance and we failed, and now there's probably not a lot we can do about it. But hey, it's up to the community. If the community do push back more, then absolutely, you know, this sort of thing will stop. But there wasn't enough pushback on Blight. Blight was the biggest thing. There needs to be a lot more of an effort if people want this to change, because just saying don't do this here and there isn't changing anything. So we need to do that a hell of a lot more to make a difference. So I would say like Wesker's Hug Tech will be removed. Oni's 180 flicks, his instant 180s will be removed as well, the same way Chucky's was, I would anticipate. Those are the things that come to mind. Obviously, the Dracula Hug Tech is going to go too. I don't know if there's anything else that immediately comes to mind that they're going to get rid of, but those are definitely things that will be gone pretty soon, I'd imagine. Well, maybe not pretty soon, but within the next year, I'd imagine they're gone.
Yeah. So sort of stuff they've put into the game by accident.
Yes.
Which kind of brings us nicely on to our next topic, because we're going to talk about the dumbest accidents that we've had in real life.
Okay, that sounds like a fun topic.
So do you want to start us off?
Oh. Well, I feel like you have a large catalog to share, so I need to think a little bit.
This is true. I can actually give you the origin story of the Stumpy name.
Hell yeah.
So, got to bring you back to school times. I had to wait at the bottom of the hill from my school for a bus every day, and it would be like a 45-minute wait for my bus. It was ridiculous. So you're kind of just stood there to your own devices, trying to come up with ways to entertain yourself while you were waiting. And there was like a wooden fence ran maybe 200-300 meters. We kind of came up with a game of just walk on top of this wooden fence. Now this was cross-beam wooden fence. It wasn't the spiky wooden fence that you probably all immediately pictured. This was fairly flat, like, and it wasn't too bad. It was maybe a meter off the ground. So we kind of all just started walking on it, like tightrope kind of walking along this wooden fence. And there'd be a wooden fence with a stump every 2 meters. And I
Yeah.
remember walking on it one day, and somebody was driving past and dooted the horn, completely distracted me, and I fell with my legs apart, whacked off a
Okay.
stump,
Ooh.
and forever gained the nickname Stumpy after that because of just breathing in pain on the floor after hitting this stump with me unmentionables.
Oh,
So that was
no.
one of the worst for sure.
Yeah. Sounds like a rough one.
A more recent one, though, was I did a 12-hour stream last weekend, and at about, I think it was shortly after midnight,
Yeah.
I said to chat, bear with me, I'm going to go and grab a snack. I walked into my kitchen, and instead of putting the light on like a normal person, I figured, I know where everything is in my kitchen, I'll just reach in and grab it. So after reaching into my cupboard, feeling a sharp prick, pulling my hand back out, I realized I had not grabbed what I intended to. I had instead grabbed the blades for the inside of my blender and
Yep.
was looking at a very bloody hand coming back out of this cupboard. That was a bit of a panicky moment
Ooh.
of go and clear all the blood, get everything wrapped up, and it's thankfully on the mend now. It was just a very scary moment, you know, when you reach into the dark and you pull your hand back and you go, "Oh shit, that's a lot of blood."
Yeah, no, that's not the best moment in the world for sure.
Not at all. What about yourself?
Okay, I was thinking, what's the dumbest accident? This is probably the dumbest thing I can think of. This was so dumb, I hate it. So I got a new PC back in March. Like I was very maybe just before then, but I was very excited about it, very happy. I was like, yo, I'd been on console like pretty much my entire like life since I started playing games, and I was very very excited to try it. So I was getting everything set up, and I had a dual monitor setup,
Mm-hmm.
and I had it set up correctly, but I had like switched around monitors a little bit because I was trying out some different ones. I have like I tried to set up like a third one, but I just don't have the space for it, so I ended up going with two. And essentially, I set them back up, and I couldn't get my mouse to go across to the other monitor. I could only get it to work with one monitor.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent hours and hours trying to fix this. I went through loads of settings and through every little thing possible. I called people to try and help. I looked online. I watched videos. I did everything in my power. I turned my PC on and off. I did everything possible. Other than the one thing I needed to do, which was have the monitors in the correct order in my settings. You know how you have monitor 1 and 2, and the
Yeah.
monitor on your left is the number 1, monitor on the right is
Yeah.
number 2. I had them in the opposite spot, and I didn't realize that mattered. And I had looked at that before and been like, "Oh, surely that won't matter," and didn't like I was so dumb that I didn't check it, and I spent hours going through every other option in the universe. And when I eventually went back to this, and I was like, wait a minute, there's no way that would actually matter. Let's just swap these around. And I felt like the most stupid guy in the world. I swear to God, I had wasted so much time. I was panicked about it. I was like, oh my God, why are they not working? I did so much to fix it. And all I had to do was just move the left monitor to the left and the right one to the right. Like, oh my God, I swear, it was so bad. So bad. I hate that
What'll,
memory.
what'll probably make him feel even more dumb, chat, is knowing that you can just switch that and not have to move the monitors at all.
Look, let's not talk about it, okay? I don't want to talk about anything to do with the situation. Terrible.
Oh. Let me guess, you just at one stage scrolled to the left and went, "Oh shit, that's just appeared on my right monitor."
No, so what would happen? I scroll to the left and it won't like hold on, okay, so I had the right one and the left, I think. And the left one and the right.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever screen the mouse was on, it just wouldn't move to the next one. I'd try and move it, and it just wouldn't move. And so it'd only ever be on one screen. And then when I swapped them around, obviously it did work. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, this was the problem the whole time. Are you kidding? Bro. Like, I even tried turning one monitor on, and then turning the other one on, like, a little bit after, to see if that would change things. Or, like, I even swapped HDMI cables multiple times. I used DisplayPort and HDMI ports. I did everything I could, other than the one thing that it was actually the issue. Like, oh my god, it was horrible.
Oh
I
my
felt so
God.
stupid.
So if you're dumb enough to do that when you're sober, surely you've got a few fun drinking stories for us
I don't know
as
about a few
well.
fun drinking stories. I actually only started drinking recently, so I I mean, I could get at the exact date. I have a recording actually of my like first ever time drunk. Um, and because I wanted to record it for to look back at, so I could be like, okay, this is what I'm like when I'm drunk. Because I'm thinking of doing
Oh
a drink
no.
stream at some point, and I wanted to know whether I was gonna be terrible. So yeah, my first time drunk was in June. So
Jesus,
yeah,
that's very recent.
yeah, very recent. So I
I
had
feel like
like
a veteran.
so I had a bunch of sours for that. And that was kind of pretty plain sailing. I was maybe a little bit. I get a bit over affectionate when I'm drunk. I kind of don't shut up about like how much I like people. So I kind of just spent the whole time being like, "Oh my god, I love you guys." But other than that, it was interesting. I was actually okay after my first time. But
Mhm.
then I got drunk with somebody playing DBD like a month later, and I had less, but in a short period of time, and I ended up passing out. And like I woke up and I was like, oh god, oh no, what the hell? That was kind of a funny experience to laugh about. Um, but obviously that was a bit like, okay, maybe I need to figure out my limits a little bit more here. And then recently I stepped it up from sours. I just decided fuck it, and I bought some vodka and
Oh
tried
no.
that. Yeah, I had quite a bit of that, and it was actually I did use a mixer this time. I'd like to say the other two times I just having straight sours, like straight liqueur. Mixer is definitely recommended because the mixer vodka was a lot nicer, and that was. I mean, I was very 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 drunk, so I don't know. I don't remember that one so well, but that was an interesting experience. I think maybe I wouldn't have been so great at football if I played at that time. But it wasn't actually so bad again. I was actually a lot like I was okay the next day. But not too many interesting stories yet. Just kind of new experience to me. And yeah, it's been kind of cool. But what about you?
Oh, I've been around the block a few times, obviously being Irish, and everybody calls me an old bastard. So I'm in my mid 20s. I've had a good time drinking. I remember going. I remember going to freshers for uni. Like I didn't go to uni.
Oh yeah.
I for that first week, I was doing a course sort of in a different part of the country,
Mhm.
and for the first week, all my mates were doing their courses in uni up in Belfast. So I said, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna just tell them I'm sick for the first week of my course. I'm gonna go up there and get pilotic. And I remember, because obviously I was a student, I didn't have a whole pile of money. I ran out of money about 3 days into this week. And I kind of said to my mates, I was like, I've had my fun, I'm out of money. Could somebody spot me 20 quid? I'll get the train back down to my own fucking course. And they basically turned around to me and they were like, we'll not pay for you to go home, but if you stay, we'll pay for you to come out every night. So that ended up as a very, very messy week where I just, like, probably one of the best weeks though.
Yeah.
Like for having the crack with your mates, but Jesus, that week was, I remember sitting, I think it was the Sunday morning, um, to get the train back down the road, and I was sick as a dog sitting in that train station. I just sat there dead to the world, going, "Oh my god, am I
Yeah.
gonna vomit on this train? Am I gonna vomit now?" Like it was, it was a messy one. But I'd like to think that over the years I've gotten better. Um,
Hmm.
but then I think it's more I've gotten better at drinking. So then, genius drunk Stumpy thinks, "Oh, I'll just drink more," and I end up as wasted, but off more drink now. So I've never really learnt my lesson fully. I've just kind of learnt that I need more drink to just be a mess.
Yeah. I
So I
mean,
have.
it can be difficult to learn that lesson. Like, there's the second time after I passed out, I was like really, really ill the morning after. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then I did it again. And then after I had a vodka, I was a bit ill as well. And I was like, I'm never going to do this again, probably, even though it wasn't that bad. And now I'm like, it'd be fun at some point. So it's like it is kind of how it is. Also, I remember something stupid I did now. I didn't remember, but I may or may not have gifted like 30 something subs to like different streamers while I was drunk. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just give like my entire wallet to everyone. Which I don't feel
Jesus.
bad about because like I can do that. It's all right. And like these people deserve it anyway, but it's like probably should have made that decision when I was sober rather than drunk. But I thought
Mhm.
it's an interesting one, remembering that. I
I
had
can remember.
conversations with
Hmm.
people in chat, and I looked back at them the next day. I'm like, I don't remember this conversation. That's kind of cool.
I can remember a very funny one. So in Ireland we have Gaelic football, and there's a big thing at the end of the year. It's called the championship. So no matter where you place in the league, this is the big cup competition. This is the one everybody gears up for. You know, it's kind of like if you had, I don't know how to best to describe it. It's like if you played league all year, then you have the cup at the very end. The cup is the big one, right? So
Yeah.
beyond that, we had just won a semi final, and this it was like 9:30 at night when we won it. We had 45 minutes to get home. So we got home, showered, changed, all that crack, heading out. Way too late to be heading out, by the way. A lot of
Hmm.
places close their doors at like 10. So we were heading out at about 10
Yeah.
to a place that was 45 minutes away again, because where I live, there's not a lot of places to go out. So we were all like 17 as well. So we had the fake IDs and all that crack ready up and things like that. And carry out in the taxi there. So big bottle of Buckfast or maybe a small bit of vodka and stuff, and all wasted by the time we got there. And I remember getting turned down by the bouncer. Turned all of us down.
Hmm.
Just said, "You have showed up too late." It was like 11 o'clock by the time we got there because you have to have your piss stops and stuff on the way. Like, and
Yeah.
he goes, "No, no chance. You aren't getting in." We were thinking, "Fuck's sake, this place is open to like 1:30. We could get a good 2.5 hours in here if we could just get in." And I remember one of my friends turning around to me and saying, "You ever tried the alleyway?" And I says, "No, what do you mean?" So we went up the street a wee bit to an alleyway where there was a gate. And he says, "Right, come on, we'll hop this gate." We hopped the gate, and we were all about halfway up the gate when the cops came around the corner into the alley, started shouting behind us. So we fucking threw ourselves over this thing into
Yeah.
a big yard, up this set of metal stairs, and onto the roof of a factory,
Okay.
right? Because we'd figured out the roof of the factory was right beside the smoking area of this nightclub. And
Okay.
so I was thinking, Jesus, there must just be a drop down off the side of this factory into the smoking area. Nope, there was about a 3 or 4 foot jump that was about 20 foot in the air. And they were
Right.
going, yeah, it's just an easy skip across over there. And I was looking at it going, I'm not the best with heights. Like, and I was going, are you fucking for real? That's a big jump. Like, it's not a chance. But I remember, I think it was one of the older boys. He was 18 himself. So he was considered old at that stage. We were all
Hmm.
17, still prime of life.
Yeah.
He jumped first because he'd done it the most, and he landed it. There's like a railing that you were aiming for. Like if you could grab onto the railing, you could stay up. So landed. He actually landed on top of the railing, got down, and stood there. And he was like, "Right, jump, and I'll catch you, and I'll rip you over the railing." So I remember jumping and thinking, mid-air, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. He rips me across this railing onto like this set of stairs, and I literally just like gather myself, stand back up, and I'm face to face with one of my mates. He's like, "Oh my god, I didn't know you were coming tonight," and I was like, "I wasn't, but we found a way in." And then just went on to have a great night after everybody had jumped in.
Yeah.
But I
Damn.
remember that being looking back, being one of the stupidest things I've ever done. Because if somebody had a fail there, like
Yeah.
one of us
No.
would have broke our legs entirely. It was just kind of young and not afraid of anything. Fuck it, let's do it. I've got enough drink in me now not to worry about the consequences.
Hmm.
Wouldn't advise it to anybody listening to this at home.
Yeah. No. That
You
doesn't
know,
sound
but
advisable.
it's a story for sure.
All right. Well, you talked about a nice trip out there. On the
Mhm.
topic of trips, if you could go anywhere in the world right now, where would you go? What's the play? Where you going to for a little bit?
I think one place that I do want to go and live in some stage is
Uh-huh. Ooh.
Australia. I could see
Oh.
myself going there just for a year. Just
Yeah.
it's kind of the place to go for Irish people. Where you go out there, there is a lot of Irish out there. It's a different way of life. It's a lot hotter climate than we're used to, but it's just something different, something cool. you're independent. Like you are 22, 23 hours away from home by plane. You have to fend for yourself out there, and it's just an experience that I want. I want to go
Yeah.
out there, live to the best of my fucking ability, and just experience that for a year, maybe two.
Okay.
So I'm looking to hopefully do that in the next few years.
I
Just head out
see.
and yeah, that'll be the end of stumpy streams for a while, but it'll be an experience that I just don't want to miss for anything.
Hmm.
What
Okay.
about
Well,
yourself?
yeah. That's pretty cool. To be fair. Okay. Well, I mean, it's not really a secret on my end. I've been asked this question a few times before, and my answer always remains the same. There are a few places that I quite like, but for the most part, I'm not that interested in going to many places.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the country that I want to see the most is definitely Germany, without doubt, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved Germany. It's just a really really cool place to me, and as a big football fan as well, the football in Germany is always really cool to watch. Like you got teams like Dortmund with the best atmosphere arguably in the world. I think a lot of fans would argue Dortmund have the best fan base, and it is like
Mm-hmm.
world renowned for its stadium and the football is played there. So I would love to see that. I'm a big fan of the community with the football as well. Like if you go to like the Bundesliga socials,
Mm-hmm.
they have like admins that control the accounts that will often like respond to fans, and they have a lot more engagement, like the players and the fans. It feels a lot more like a community, and it's just a great place in general. There's so many cool attractions over there, and it's a bit better weather than England too. So it's just a nice place, and it's somewhere that I really have always wanted to go visit. So absolutely love to go there. Um, Other places that are kind of cool. I mean, I'm going. So I probably will be going to Germany pretty soon. I have got something that I haven't completely confirmed all the details yet, but I will likely be going pretty soon. And I
Mm-hmm.
will be going to the Netherlands in mid next year as well, which I'm looking forward to. Perhaps, maybe you might be there as well for a certain event, the
Possibly.
TwitchCon. So we'll see. I don't know if I can convince you. If I can put a gun to your head and say you're coming with me, then maybe you'll be there
Podcast
too.
from live at TwitchCon.
That sounds like a fun time, right? Imagine how many special guests we could have then.
Oh, imagine.
A big group podcast, that'd be sick. But like, yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. So yeah, I think Belgium's always been somewhere I'd like to visit too. I actually used to tell people that I was from Belgium back in school, just like, and then I'd tell them the truth. I'd be like, I'm actually from England, but to be a bit more interesting and not give the boring answer like, oh, I'm from this place in England or whatever, I'd be like, I'm actually from Belgium because I thought it was a really cool place.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you've
that,
always been a bullshitter, is what you're telling us.
yeah, damn right. So yeah, I definitely do want to see. Belgium, Netherlands are cool. Germany's always number one for me. That's just somewhere that I really, really want to go and see. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm interested in the moment.
Mm-hmm. I think a place I'd love to go as well is Japan. Just in terms of like culture and like just different way of living. I think it'd be really
Mm.
cool to see a country like that. We're just it is entirely different over there, and I just think that'd be awesome. It'd be such a cool place to visit.
It
Learn a
would be
different way of
cool.
life.
Absolutely. That does intimidate me a little bit though. I'm kind of scared of how different it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I do kind of want to go see Japan as well. But I'm still kind of like, oh, it's so different. Oh my god, I'm not used to this. So that does scare me a little bit. But I
Mm-hmm.
would kind of like to go. It is a really really cool place for sure. Like there's some like Tokyo's obviously a very popular destination. That's probably where I'd choose to go as well. I've got a few family members who went there before. It's just it seems like a really really cool place, but with everything being like the even like the city, it's like there's so many things so close to each other, and I'm not used to that because I kind of everywhere I've lived, there's been a lot of space, and there's not a lot of space there, and everything's so different. So I'm kind of intimidated by that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think another place as well, Iceland, just for the Northern Lights to go for like a week, experience those,
Oh
experience like I've seen some fucking amazing pictures of people just sitting in an outside sort of hot spring watching the Northern Lights. That's kind of the dream. I know someone as
yeah,
well who went there. They were sitting in a hot tub. They had a beer in the snow beside the hot tub to keep it cold. And they were watching the Northern Lights, just pop the top off the lid and drank away. I like
Yeah.
that. It's really cool. I think you're sitting in a hot tub and your beer is being cooled by the snow. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty sick, to be fair.
Yeah.
That does
So
sound like a good time.
that could be a plan for the future.
All right. Well, on to the next topic that we wanted to talk about. Movies. Movie review time. Now, fun story. We did have a movie planned for this. One of Stumpy's favorite movies of all time, My Little Sinister. And it was, we watched like half of it,
And
and
then it just stopped working.
unfortunately, yes, everything kind of died for us, and we could not finish it, and we've not been able to find the time where both of us are available, unfortunately, to do that. So
Next week.
next week we may have a review of Sinister, but this week we do not. So we are going to be talking about a different movie instead, one that we've both seen the first one of. Stumpy a while ago because he's a bit ancient, and it's an old movie. But we're going to be talking about Halloween. And Stumpy, I think you've seen a lot of the Halloween movies. I've only seen the first one. So it'll be an interesting conversation for sure to see how we view it.
Mm-hmm. I think
What are we
it
thinking?
will always be iconic. It has one of the biggest characters in the entire genre, where everybody kind of knows who Mike Myers is. It's kind of similar to what we've covered so far. Everyone knows Ghosty. Everyone knows Jigsaw. Everyone knows Myers. It's like the older movies had a great way of making their characters iconic.
Yeah.
And it's something that hasn't really aged well with like new movies wouldn't have as iconic as characters. Not everybody would know like the Megans of the world or things like that, but everybody knows Mike Myers. And I think the fact that he is just a man with a knife is what makes you think, oh shit, like, that could be anyone. That makes
Yeah.
it feel more real. Obviously there's a lot of messing about later in the series, but for the sort of the first few movies, he is just a man with a mask and a knife, and that can be terrifying to a lot of people because that can happen to anybody. The guy with the mask and a knife could walk into your house and just have at you with a knife. I think that's one of the scariest things about it. It has that realness to it. So it does.
No, I can see that absolutely. Obviously, things like I've not seen the other ones, but I know it does go a bit more supernatural in the recent ones. I think, like to an extent, or at least definitely on the edge. And yeah, I kind of agree with that aspect of it. I've got to say, as I've only seen the original Halloween, I didn't like it very much. It wasn't terrible, and I loved the theme. That was great, but I did just feel like the pacing wasn't that great at times. But there was some really cool aspects about it. Obviously, the killer was really creepy. There was some really cool moments for sure. It didn't quite. It wasn't. I guess I had really high expectations because it's this like movie that's been decorated as like it's the Michael Myers movie. It's Halloween. It's like horror of horrors. So I think I had a bit higher expectations. It wasn't bad, but it didn't quite impress me as much as I thought it would. I don't know what your first impressions were when you first watched it, and how you feel about it overall.
As well, you've got to remember sort of time frame wise, like for the people watching it back then, it would have been scarier for them than it is for us. Obviously, we're spoiled for choice when it comes to horror movies now. But back then, this was a big thing, and it was new, it was exciting, it was scary. Like horror over the years has changed to the extent that you could watch an old movie and think, well, this isn't scary at all. How do people get scared by this? Like the Blair Witch, for example, very scary when it first came out. If you watched it now after watching some of the movies we've been spoiled with lately, you're sort of looking at this going, well, how did people find this scary back then? But it's kind of, I think it's always going to age badly whenever you have so many movies like it now, whereas at the time, it was new, it was exciting, it was completely on its own in the way they did it. And there wasn't as many options out there, like you were used to being scared by movies with 20 different jump scares in them now. And that's kind of become in our head what horror is. But back then, I think it just, age hasn't helped it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying as well. Like a lot of people as well. Well, to be fair, I was gonna say a lot of people's first experiences with a movie like Halloween would have been like one of their first horrors as well, because it's just one of the first ones you go to. But it was one of my first horrors, in fairness, as well. So I hadn't had the opportunity to see a lot of the newer stuff. So I feel like, I don't know, I was a little bit disappointed by it, but I do see exactly what you're saying. I definitely times have changed it quite a bit. And back then it definitely was like a lot more scary. And you've got the hype around as well. Like you don't have hype around Halloween now because Halloween was like 7 billion years ago. Like if there's a new one, you have hype around it. But nobody's hyping up the old Halloween like out of the blue. But if a new horror movie comes out like relatively new, then you'll have all the hype around it. And when this came out, it was probably like so hype. Everyone probably loved this. It was like all they talked about, I imagine. So it would have been very different atmosphere for a lot of people when they first watched it as well.
Do you feel like your experiences with Dead by Daylight have taken away from him as well? Where you now, instead of seeing him as a horror character in a movie, see him as one of the weakest killers in Dead by Daylight?
I don't think so. I don't think that's true. I don't think that changes my perception of him at all. But maybe it does to an extent, and I just don't realize it. But I don't think of Michael Myers as like the really weak DVD killer. You know, I still think of him as like even before I saw that as like the big Halloween slasher face of horror sort of guy. But and you could argue the flip side of you might see him as the one of the few killers that still scares you with a scratch mirror. You know, one of those really terrifying killers, and then maybe it makes the movie scarier. So I don't know. You could view that multiple ways. You could view that as like, oh, it's the DVD killer that walks up to you and instantly murders you, or it's the
True.
DVD killer that like is completely useless and stares at you, or it's the DVD killer that can see you through walls and jump scares the life out of you. So there's a lot of ways you can view it. To be fair,
You
but I don't
talked as
think
well
it's true.
about you talked as well about the score and how it was good. Do you think that's something with older horror movies that they absolutely seem to have nailed? Like the music in this movie was fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think like a lot of the thing is like the 1980s sort of time, I think, and like 70s were like horror prime. And a lot of the scores like represent what people love most about horror. So even if they sounded good normally, let's just take what they're out that what they're for. I think we can all agree they sound pretty good anyway, but it's kind of hard to take away what they represent. But because they represent something that's also like beloved by everyone and something that people like just see as the face of horror, when you combine a really good score and something that you love that much, or a lot of people do, you get a lot of attraction towards that music. So for me, maybe it's not so much because again, I don't really care about Halloween that much, but I still think the score's amazing. So for people that love Halloween and see that as like the representation of one of their favorite horrors, are only going to enjoy that score even more. So I think there was a combination of great music back then and also it representing what people love most about horror.
And as someone who's just come into sort of the horror genre, or like maybe you've not seen as much as other people, you've kind of grown into it and watched more movies lately. If you were
Mhm.
to rank the three movies that we've done so far, if you were to rank the characters, who do you think's the most iconic of Jigsaw,
Ooh.
Ghostface, and Myers?
Okay. It's not Jigsaw. Jigsaw's the least iconic. For sure. Like I love Jigsaw, but he's not as you don't think of not many people would say Jigsaw is the first horror villain they think of. They just wouldn't. And Jigsaw has a lot of faces as well. Jigsaw almost feels like a group rather than one person. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people when you think of Jigsaw would think of John Kramer, but they might think of Billy the Puppet. Or and then you got Jigsaw's accomplices that were a big part of the movies as well, and they took their reins for a while. Whereas like in Scream, you may have different killers, but it's still Ghostface. And in Halloween, it's Michael Myers, so it's a bit more linear. Um, honestly, I feel like Myers is more iconic, but but it's gonna be hard to make sense of this. I feel like Myers is more iconic, but Ghostface is actually seen more, if that makes sense. I think more people think of Michael Myers, but I think Ghostface's branding is actually more out there than Myers is,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So I would say Myers is more iconic, but Ghostface is actually just like seen around more, if that makes sense. I think more people will think of Myers still, but Ghostface might be more commonly seen.
See, I would
If,
say if you're to go by just killer, I would say
mhm.
Ghostface would be the more iconic, the more recognizable. But if you're to go by main character pairings, Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, absolutely, I think
Oh
they
yeah.
100% beat Ghostface and Sidney Prescott.
Well, Sydney was kind of like supported by two like other really big characters as well, whereas like Laurie is just kind of like the main one in her story, as far as I can tell. At least in the first one, she definitely is. Like she has some other friends on the side, but I mean they don't get a lot of airtime, and I don't think there's a lot of character development going on there. So I feel like Scream, you've got your three core cast of like main protagonists, that two that support Sydney, but the others, Dewey and what, bro?
Yeah.
How am I blanking? Gale are definitely like just as important to the story as Sydney, and I don't think it would be the same without them for the majority of the Scream movies.
I think something that as well shows homage to how sort of iconic Myers and Laurie are. Obviously, they brought Laurie back in a more recent few movies and made her pretty much a badass. And you saw a very poor attempt to copy that in the new Netflix version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where I'm sorry, it was a horrible movie. I think it might be my most hated horror movie. And they brought back one of the old iconic characters to fight Leatherface, and you're kind of looking at it going, okay, well, even the aesthetic of her, you've kind of attempted to rip off Laurie Strode in a really poor way. So it sort of gives that honor to Laurie and Michael that other movies are trying to be as iconic as them, but obviously you can't beat the original.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's all our topics, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that will wrap us up. But of course, as always, for the final segment of the podcast, we have our streamer spotlight. It is my turn to pick a streamer this week. So I have picked the one and only Mash Toxic. Absolutely lovely guy, great streamer. Mainly plays Dead by Daylight, but sometimes plays Phasmophobia as well. And yeah, he's a Wraith and Dredge and Demo main on Killer, and sometimes dabbles in other killers as well, but mainly those three, and enjoys playing a bit of Survivor too. Very, very fun guy. He does German/English hybrid streams. He will switch between the two, but he's mainly German. But he does welcome English speaking viewers as well, and talks English in the streams too, so that people from all different places can be included. And so he's got a very cool community. He's still a bit new to streaming, so if you could go show him some support, if you're interested in that sort of thing, he would definitely appreciate it. Very, very cool guy.
Yeah, my experience with Mash is he's just very nice, friendly, a good streamer. He's a very good survivor in Dead by Daylight, especially because he plays Wraith a lot. Watching him, I got the chance to watch him in a 1v1 against a Wraith, and his mind games were unbelievable because he just knew so much about the killer. So definitely very knowledgeable on all things DBD, but especially Wraith, and might not see himself as a great survivor, but he is very, very good on Survivor.
He is
as well.
He's a really cool personality too. He always you can always have a good laugh with Mash. He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's us then. That's number 3 wrapped up. We're not quitting quite yet. We're just still going strong.
What was that stat you threw out that like most podcasts end after 4 episodes? We're doing well. We're on track.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think it's like 95% of podcasts don't make it to 10 episodes. So we're going to try and do that at least and see if we can still stick about after that. See if you guys are still happy enough to listen to us, watch us.
I gotta deal with this guy. Guys, can you all just leave? I don't want to deal with this guy. Please. Come on. Don't
Well, if they've got this far,
it's
too late now.
Bro. I take back what I said at the start. All of you abandon this right now. I want to escape Stumpy. Please. He's keeping me here against my will. But okay. On a real, it's been absolutely great having this podcast episode with you, Stumpy. Hopefully all you guys have enjoyed it as well. Hopefully you've had just as much of a blast as we have.
Yeah, a bit of a longer one this time as well.
Indeed. I mean, it's been fun topics, you know?
Yeah, true. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the like sort of real life topics as much as the DBD and horror movies and stuff like that. We're trying to get it where we're not only covering the topics we're familiar with, but maybe telling you a bit more about ourselves as well as we go. So if you do like that, or if there's anything you guys want to see from us, don't be afraid to throw it in the comments and we'll try and cover it next week.
Absolutely. But until then, we shall see you in the next episode. Goodbye, guys.